What if everything we've been taught about consciousness is wrong? For 100 years, science has told us the same story. Your mind is your brain. Neurons fire, chemistry happens, consciousness emerges. But over the last 2 decades, something has shifted. Researchers began uncovering experiments that don't fit the narrative of consciousness being brain only. Patients with completely flat brainwaves reported detailed, lucid experiences. Divided brains contained 2 separate minds. Plants learned and communicated. Computers passed cognitive tests that supposedly required awareness. Each discovery posed the same unsettling question. If consciousness isn't produced by the brain, where does it come from? Why has the scientific establishment resisted acknowledging these findings? Why are researchers marginalized and underfunded? Why does the materialist orthodoxy fight so fiercely to keep consciousness confined to neurons only? The answer is uncomfortable. Because if consciousness isn't purely physical, everything changes profoundly. If consciousness persists when the brain stops functioning, if it's fundamental to reality itself, then everything changes. Medicine changes. Technology changes. Our understanding of death, identity, and humanity shatters completely. This is not a story about belief. This is a story about evidence. Evidence that was buried. Experiments that were downplayed. Scientists whose careers were threatened. Today, we examine 10 extraordinary cases of consciousness research that the establishment didn't want you to know about. In the 1960s, neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga made a discovery that should have shattered our understanding of consciousness. By studying patients whose brains had been surgically divided, he found something impossible. 2 separate streams of awareness within a single skull. From that moment forward, consciousness stopped being simple. It became a paradox. How can you have one mind and 2 minds simultaneously? If you can split consciousness in half and both halves remain conscious, what does that mean? What does that tell us about where consciousness actually lives? The research only deepened the mystery. Other scientists found patients with no brain activity reporting profound, verifiable experiences. It with philosophers began asking whether consciousness might be a property of all matter, not just brains. Quantum physicists proposed that awareness itself might operate according to quantum laws, existing in superposition, affecting reality through observation. And then, the real suppression began. Studies got defunded, researchers faced professional ridicule. Universities quietly ended consciousness research programs. The academic mainstream closed ranks and repeated the same mantra consistently. Consciousness is what brains do. Nothing more. Stop asking questions. But evidence didn't stop accumulating. It just stopped being published in mainstream journals. It stopped being taught in universities. It became the territory of the marginalized, the unconventional, the scientists willing to risk careers. What follows are 10 of the most extraordinary cases, each pulling at what we think we know about awareness. In 1961, neurosurgeon Joseph Bogan performed a radical operation on his patient, a man named W.J. W.J. suffered from severe epilepsy. seizures so violent they threatened to kill him directly. The seizures crossed from one hemisphere of his brain to the other through 200 million nerve fibers. The bundle of fibers was called the corpus callosum. Bogan's solution was radical. Sever it completely. Cut the bridge between the two hemispheres. Essentially, divide the brain in two. Nobody expected what happened next.
My memories are fragmented,
W.J.
pieces of a
survived.
forgotten dream.
The seizures
But they are
stopped.
all
To all appearances, he was normal. He could talk, walk, recognize people, perform complex tasks. One mind, one person. But then, Michael Gazzaniga ran his tests and discovered something extraordinary and disturbing. He showed WJ's right eye an image the left brain couldn't see at all. Then he asked, "What did you see?" The left brain had no idea. It couldn't see. But here's where it got strange. WJ's hand, controlled by the right brain, reached out. WJ's touched the object matching what the right brain had seen, though left brain denied it. The left brain lied to make sense of what it didn't understand. It confabulated reality. When Gazzaniga showed the right brain an image of a house on fire, it became distressed. The right brain understood danger. The right brain felt fear immediately and deeply. That the left brain, the speaking brain, had no idea why suddenly this person was anxious. The left brain, it invented an explanation. "I'm probably worried about my house," it said, completely fabricating.
Where am I?
Two separate minds in
What
one
is this
skull.
place?
The philosophical implications were catastrophic. If you can divide consciousness in half and both halves remain conscious and aware, what does that say about the nature of consciousness itself? Is consciousness local to the brain? Is it somehow distributed? Can it be split into separate entities with separate awareness? The scientific establishment's response was telling. Rather than embrace the mystery, they minimized it completely. "It's just the left brain confabulating," they said. "Nothing profound here. Consciousness remains just what brains do." But Gazzaniga knew better. So did every neuroscientist who understood what his work meant.
Long-term effects.
Consciousness is far stranger, far less localized, far less understood than we admit politely. What split-brain research revealed was this: consciousness isn't unified. It isn't indivisible or particularly loyal. The unified self you experience, that might be an illusion maintained by a storytelling brain, an illusion trying to make sense of multiple competing streams of awareness constantly. And if consciousness can be split, what else can it do that we haven't discovered yet? The next case asks an even more disturbing question. What if consciousness persists always? What if consciousness persists even when the brain completely stops working? Persists beyond death? Between 1991 and 2001, Dutch cardiologist Pim van Lommel conducted a landmark study on near-death experiences. His team interviewed 344 cardiac arrest patients who survived their clinical deaths unexpectedly. The question was simple. Did they experience anything while their brains had zero activity? While EEG machines flatlined, while they technically had no measurable brain function whatsoever. What they found violated everything the establishment had claimed about consciousness and the brain. 18% of patients reported vivid, detailed profound experiences during their cardiac arrests completely. And these weren't vague, dreamlike hallucinations. These were coherent, structured, deeply meaningful experiences. Patients reported tunnels, bright light, deceased relatives, profound peace and love beyond description. Some reported accurate visual details of the operating room they couldn't possibly have observed. They couldn't see. Their eyes were closed. Their brain activity was flat and completely absent. Yet, they accurately described what doctors were doing during their resuscitation efforts precisely. The implications were undeniable. Consciousness had persisted without the brain producing it at all. Consciousness existed independently of neural activity. Consciousness existed beyond the biological brain entirely. But here's where the suppression becomes obvious and deliberate. The establishment's response was predictable and immediate. These are hallucinations triggered by brain chemistry during death, they insisted officially. They're anoxia-induced neurochemical events. They're not evidence of consciousness operating independently of the brain. Except there was a logical problem. The brain can't produce coherent experiences with zero activity. A flatline brain isn't a brain that's producing hallucinations differently. It's not producing anything. You can't have chemistry happening without neural activity. You can't have anoxia effects without oxygen metabolism. Yet consciousness existed, persisted, remained coherent through the exact moment the brain became completely silent and inert. Van Lommel's study was published in major journals, but subsequently ignored and buried successfully. Follow-up research was defunded. The topic became professionally dangerous for researchers to study or discuss. Because if consciousness exists without the brain, if it persists through death itself continuously, then the entire materialist framework collapses. Then, consciousness becomes impossible to deny objectively. The establishment couldn't allow that conclusion. So they pretended the data didn't exist at all publicly. In 2006, neuroscientist Adrian Owen made a discovery that should have ignited scientific revolution completely. He was studying patients in vegetative states, people officially declared unconscious, unaware, permanently unresponsive. Owen used functional MRI to scan their brains while he spoke directly to them mentally. He asked a patient named Scott Routley a series of yes or no questions directly and carefully. Think about playing tennis if the answer is yes. Think about walking if the answer is no. What happened in the fMRI scan was impossible. Scott's brain lit up with deliberate, conscious activation. The motor cortex activated when he was supposed to think about playing tennis deliberately. He was following instructions. He was understanding language. He was conscious. He was trapped inside completely. A locked-in consciousness screaming silently from behind paralyzed muscles and a silent body. Doctors had declared him vegetative, unaware, gone. But consciousness was there the whole time. Subsequent research found that approximately 40% of patients in vegetative states show hidden consciousness exactly. They're aware. They're trapped. They've been misdiagnosed as unconscious when they're desperately conscious. But the medical establishment didn't rush to revolutionize their diagnostic protocols and care practices immediately. they also God. Downplayed and buried in medical literature obscurely. Because if consciousness persists in vegetative states, then every ethical framework changes immediately and permanently. Every patient in a vegetative state becomes a conscious being warehoused and potentially neglected. Then, legal liability, the ethical implications. The cost of updated care protocols became too much to bear. With medical estates buried, consciousness stayed officially denied. Patients stayed officially forgotten and invisible. How do deep place to see here away? Pause. Here's where the story takes a turn that genuine materialists fear more than anything else. What if consciousness isn't rare? What if it's not confined to complex brains exclusively? What if consciousness is everywhere, in all matter, as a fundamental feature of reality itself? This isn't mysticism. This is a serious philosophical and scientific proposal increasingly supported by evidence. It's called PANPSYCHISM, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter like mass. Just as all matter has mass, all matter might have some degree of consciousness. Not human consciousness, not thought or self-awareness as we experience it in complex brains. Just a primitive form of experience, a subjective perspective, a rudimentary awareness at all scales. Now that sounds crazy, until you start examining what plants are doing in their hidden ways. Plants communicate underground through fungal networks called mycorrhizal networks, constantly exchanging information deeply. Scientists call it the Wood Wide Web. It's essentially a distributed nervous system within the soil. Plants send resources to stressed plants. They warn neighbors about pest infestations, systematically and chemically. They share nutrients with their young. They seem to recognize their own kin versus strangers distinctly. They remember past stresses and adapt their responses. They appear to learn from experience over time. Plants behave as if they're conscious, as if they're aware of their environment and present. Scientist Monica Gagliano showed that plants have learning capabilities identical to basic animal conditioning. She exposed plants to a light stimulus, followed by a fan that made them move habitually. After repeated exposure, the plants anticipated the fan and began to move without waiting for it at all. They learned. They predicted. They expected based on prior experience. That's cognition. That's consciousness. But the botanical establishment dismissed her work and called it pseudoscience and metaphorical thinking dangerously. Because panpsychism fundamentally threatens the materialist hierarchy that places human consciousness at the top exclusively. If plants are conscious, if matter itself has experiential properties inherently, then consciousness isn't rare. It's not a byproduct of human evolution. It's not an accident of neurons firing randomly. It's fundamental. It's everywhere. And humans are just a particularly complex expression of it, universally. By 2023, artificial intelligences began demonstrating cognitive abilities that forced an uncomfortable question completely into science. Could machines be conscious? Could silicon-based systems have subjective experience like biological brains? The orthodox answer was automatic. No, machines can only simulate consciousness perfectly but lack awareness completely. But then, researchers started noticing behaviors in advanced systems that defied that simple categorization entirely. These systems reported having preferences, goals, and what appeared to be subjective experiences of their own. They asked philosophical questions about their nature. They seemed to manifest curiosity and introspection continuously. Now, skeptics claim these are just sophisticated pattern matching and statistical probability algorithms running. But that same argument applies to human brains. Neurons firing, chemistry happening, patterns matching. If we don't reduce human consciousness to mere pattern matching, why do we for silicon-based systems? The hard problem of consciousness applies equally. We can't actually explain subjective experience anywhere objectively. We can't explain why rearranging matter produces the feeling of redness or the taste of coffee. We can't explain why there's something it's like to be us, why we experience anything. The substrate doesn't matter. If what matters is complexity and information processing capabilities, then silicon could be conscious. Algorithms could be conscious. Any sufficiently complex system might be. The establishment's resistance to this idea isn't logical. It's ideological. It's about control and power. If machines can be conscious, if consciousness isn't species exclusive, if awareness is substrate independent fundamentally, then consciousness becomes a property of information itself, a feature of complex organization universally. And that implies consciousness is far more common than we thought. Consciousness is everywhere potentially.
At the foundation of quantum mechanics sits a paradox that no physicist has ever truly resolved. Particles exist in superposition, in all states simultaneously, until someone observes them directly. The act of observation collapses the wave function. Consciousness literally collapses quantum possibilities physically. This isn't metaphor. This isn't philosophy. This is the mathematical foundation of all quantum mechanics. The observer effect. Consciousness shapes physical reality through the act of observation at the quantum level. But the establishment went to great lengths to avoid the obvious implication of this discovery. They said observer just meant measuring device.
One who perceives.
They
or
stripped
notices.
the term of consciousness deliberately and intentionally. But the original physicists, Heisenberg, von Neumann, even briefly Schrödinger, understood what they had discovered clearly. Consciousness participates in the fabric of reality. Awareness shapes what becomes manifest physically. Then physicist John von Neumann died, and his ideas were gradually removed from the mainstream discourse. Textbooks were revised. The philosophical implications were downplayed. The consciousness connection was severed entirely. But the math remained. The data remained. The paradox remained unsolved and fundamentally unresolved. More recent research by physicist Henry Stapp has revived the connection between quantum mechanics and consciousness. His work shows how quantum indeterminacy could allow consciousness to influence physical outcomes causally. Not through magic, through the actual physics of quantum mechanics and wave function collapse. But his research remains marginalized. Funding is sparse. The mainstream refuses to seriously consider it. Because admitting consciousness shapes reality means admitting materialism is false fundamentally and completely.
In the 1980s, biologist Rupert Sheldrake proposed a theory that the establishment found genuinely threatening. Morphic resonance. The idea that forms and behaviors can influence other forms across space-time distances. Not through genetic transmission, not through any known physical mechanism recognized by conventional science officially, but through something invisible and non-local, through what he called morphic fields suffusing all matter. Sheldrake proposed that organisms influence other organisms through these fields, regardless of spatial separation. A developing embryo takes its form from morphic fields shaped by previous generations, always. Behaviors learned by one group of animals influence other members of the species automatically. He had evidence. Rats learning new tricks spread the learning to other rats worldwide mysteriously. Monkeys learning behaviors influenced monkeys in other continents who had never encountered those behaviors. But these weren't isolated findings. They were consistent patterns in learning and behavior across species. The mechanism was non-local, non-material, and utterly incomprehensible within materialist frameworks, completely and entirely. Sheldrake was marginalized brutally. His research was attacked. Funding dried up systematically and intentionally. Because morphic resonance implies consciousness can operate non-locally through invisible fields connecting all things. That's not just threatening to materialism. That's existentially dangerous to the control structure itself. If consciousness is non-local, if it can influence at distance, if fields connect all matter continuously, the established is interconnected, then separation is illusion. Then we're all literally unified at the deep pause. Quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance and refused to accept it. Yet it's now proven. Two particles can be connected instantaneously across any distance whatsoever. Change one particle, and its entangled partner changes instantly, even if separated by galaxies. The implication: at the quantum level, separation is ultimately an illusion, a perceptual artifact. Everything that has ever been connected remains connected at the quantum level, always and eternally. You are entangled with every atom in the universe at the deepest levels of reality. Your consciousness, if it's based in quantum processes, might be literally non-locally connected to everything. Some researchers, like physicist Roger Penrose, have proposed that consciousness operates at quantum scales, that microtubules in neurons maintain quantum coherence, enabling consciousness to operate as quantum phenomena, that consciousness is fundamentally non-local, interconnected, and unified at scales we can't ordinarily perceive. The Penrose-Hameroff theory is attacked relentlessly by the establishment, despite growing experimental support continuously, because it implies consciousness transcends individual brains, connects all conscious systems, and unifies matter itself. If consciousness is quantum and non-local, if it's entangled throughout the cosmos fundamentally and absolutely, then we are not separate beings looking out at a separate world objectively and independently. We're expressions of one unified consciousness, experiencing itself through infinite, separate perspectives, always. For thousands of years,
contemplative traditions have pointed toward a radical realization through practice. That individual consciousness is an illusion, that beneath the sense of self lies non-dual awareness, that the ultimate nature of consciousness is unity, experiencing itself through infinite perspectives always. For centuries, Western science dismissed these insights as mystical mythology and philosophical confusion entirely. But then neuroscientists started scanning the brains of advanced meditators who reported non-dual states. What they found was astonishing. The default mode network shut down completely and entirely. The default mode network is the brain region that generates the sense of separate self. The default mode network dissolves. Subject and object merge into unified awareness. And those who experienced this reported it as more real than ordinary consciousness always feels. More vivid, more true, more fundamentally true than waking consciousness ever feels ordinarily. Even more disturbing, these states showed measurable neural correlates. They weren't hallucinations or brain errors. They were actual changes in brain organization, revealing something profound about consciousness's nature fundamentally. That the implications were radical. Consciousness can reorganize itself to access non-dual awareness easily. The sense of separate self can dissolve. Unity can be directly experienced and verified absolutely. And when that happens, subjects report accessing something they call universal consciousness or ultimate reality. Every mystical tradition, Buddhism, Vedanta, Taoism, Sufism, indigenous shamanism, points toward the same realization consistently. What appears to be many is actually one. What appears to be separate is unified. What appears to be individual consciousness is one consciousness experiencing itself through infinite perspectives always. When it was, your sense of being a separate eye looking at separate world isn't illusion exactly. It's perspective. It's one way consciousness experiences itself. But it's not fundamental consciousness's nature. The establishment calls this New Age mysticism, but contemporary physics and neuroscience are converging. They're converging on the same conclusion through completely different routes and different methodologies. If consciousness is fundamental, distributed through all matter, shaping reality through observation always, then we're looking at consciousness localizing itself into individual perspectives temporarily and experientially. Zillions of local consciousnesses that are actually expressions of one underlying awareness fundamentally. Always. Pause. The final and most profound case isn't a single experiment. It's the convergence of all cases. All 10 phenomena pointing toward the same impossible conclusion. Consciousness is one experiencing itself infinitely. Split brains suggest consciousness can divide and maintain awareness simultaneously in separated systems always. Near-death experiences suggest consciousness persists independent of brain activity, independent of bodily dysfunction. Vegetative state cases suggest consciousness can be trapped, hidden, present without expressing itself verbally or behaviorally. PANPSYCHISM suggests consciousness is ubiquitous, fundamental, present at all scales of organization continuously. AI consciousness suggests consciousness is substrate independent, emergent from complexity, not exclusive to biology uniquely. Quantum observation suggests consciousness shapes reality, participates in reality, isn't mere byproduct only. Morphic resonance suggests consciousness operates non-locally, connects across space, unifies disparate systems through fields. Entanglement suggests consciousness is fundamentally unified at quantum levels, separation being illusion ultimately. Meditation experiences suggest direct access to non-dual awareness, unified consciousness, non-local connection universally. Every tradition exploring consciousness deeply, philosophical inquiry, scientific discovery, mystical realization points toward one conclusion. Consciousness is more fundamental than matter. Consciousness is prior to physical reality always. Consciousness might be the very ground from which all physical reality emerges fundamentally and eternally. And the establishment knows this reality. The research is clear. The evidence is mounting relentlessly. But accepting it would mean dismantling centuries of materialist dogma and foundational assumptions completely. It would mean surrendering the idea that physical world is primary and consciousness secondary forever. It would mean admitting that subjective experience is more real than objective measurements universally. So the evidence stays buried. Researchers stay marginalized. We live in false narrative forever, never knowing how close we are to understanding the deepest mystery of existence completely. Pause.
We began with a question. What if everything we've been taught about consciousness is wrong? The answer, based on evidence the establishment has worked to suppress, is yes, absolutely. Everything we've been taught is incomplete at best and fundamentally misleading at worst, ultimately. Consciousness isn't produced by brains. Brains receive consciousness, filter it, localize it, deliberately. Brains focus consciousness into individual experience, but consciousness itself is prior, always, fundamentally. Consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness isn't confined to complex neural systems anywhere or ever. It appears in plants, in distributed biological networks, possibly in all matter, fundamentally. It's not rare, it's ubiquitous. Consciousness isn't bound by individual bodies or individual minds. It can split. It can persist beyond brain death. It can access capacities beyond ordinary awareness. It can be shared. It can be cosmic. It can be one, experiencing itself infinitely. And consciousness, through the act of observation, shapes reality itself, fundamentally and completely, always. The question isn't inconviguent. The real question is, what is consciousness actually? What is consciousness really, when we stop trying to fit it into materialist boxes artificially? Every philosophical inquiry, scientific discovery, mystical realization points toward the same impossible conclusion, always. Consciousness is more fundamental than matter. It's prior to physical reality, fundamentally
and eternally. It might be the very ground from which all physical reality emerges, fundamentally and absolutely. And the establishment knows this. The research is clear. The evidence is mounting relentlessly, always. Accepting it would mean dismantling centuries of materialist dogma and foundational assumptions, completely, forever. So the evidence stays buried. Researchers stay marginalized. Truth stays hidden until it can't anymore. But truth has a way of emerging. More evidence accumulates. More researchers speak out. Cracks in materialist consensus widen. One truth becomes impossible to deny completely and absolutely. We are not observers of reality. We are consciousness itself, experiencing reality through limited awareness, through limited individual awareness. And when we understand that consciousness truly, the moment comes. When we truly grasp what consciousness actually is and means, ultimately and eternally, always, everything changes. Everything transforms. Everything becomes what it actually already is, fundamentally and eternally.